Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my early thoughts and transfer plans ahead of Game Week 10 where I've got 3 free transfers and need to bounce back after an absolutely rubbish Game Week 9. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So, let's discuss Game Week 9, and I think the title will be something like, it can't go on like this, can it? But it can, and it feels like it is every single week as well. Lots of people have had a pretty rough game week. I mean, if you didn't own Van de Ven, Brian Mbeumo, or Rodon, or a combination of them, then you've probably had a pretty low-scoring week. But it's not like it's my first this season, and I could very much do with having a big haul in my team like that. And for Friday night, the very first game of the game week, to be a Rodon 13-pointer, I just knew that I was in for another red arrow. I just can't seem to string together a few green arrows at the moment, and it's a tough one, really, because I'm an extremely positive person. You guys will know that if you've watched my videos before, and I do my best to try and separate the decision-making process from the outcome. And I will never sit here and say that my team is perfect and I haven't made mistakes. I have to owning players like Gyökeres and João Pedro who have been terrible. Reinders, Stack was a bloody awful pick. So there are definitely mistakes in this team, and I have failed to get on assets that are performing very well. But I'm sitting here every week and just thinking, I would also like to get lucky every now and again. And I'm not saying I never get lucky, but this season has been, like, I'm looking at the players that have scored this week, and it's actually quite laughable. Like a Matty Cash 15-pointer, Hartman getting 2 assists. The top scoring midfielders outside of Brian Mbeumo are Casemiro, Dango, Aronson, Bruno G, Lukic, Tavernier. Like, when you look at this list here, it is laughable, but I would just like I'm not asking for a consecutive week, like 6 green arrows on the road. Just the Rodon points would have been nice. And maybe in hindsight, and not even in hindsight, maybe, like West Ham are not a particularly good team. They're very susceptible for conceding from set pieces. Maybe starting Rodon was the play, but I don't think there was that much between Tarkowski and Rodon. And maybe I could have started him ahead of Reinders. But again, Rodon conceded. He hit DEFCON for only the 3rd time this season and goes and grabs a goal. So that was tough. But yeah, when I look at my team, my entire team was outscored by Rodon and Van de Ven. So if you did just had Rodon and Van de Ven, or I think Van de Ven and Fleming would have also done the job as well, you would have outscored the entire team. No attacking returns. The only returns were a clean sheet for Senesi, who got booked, and obviously a clean sheet and bonus points for Gabriel, who looks like he'll finish on 9 DEFCON. And then, yeah, outside of that, it was just absolutely terrible from start to finish. And the thing is, I look at my team now, and I will be probably using all 3 free transfers this week. And I might take a -4 or -8 hit to just try and get the team sorted. But there are also tons of players that I desperately want to bring in that don't also have their own issues. Like, I don't know who to own in FPL at the moment. Because, again, if you look at the top scoring players this week, outside of a couple, like maybe Mbeumo is a great asset to own, the Arsenal defence are fantastic, I don't really want to own the players that have been getting points at the moment. So it is a tough situation to be in. It's not very often that I'm a bit lost for words and I don't even know what to say. So yeah, Game Week 9 was 35 points. 3.7 million. Now, last year, I was in the millions after Game Week 9. Because if you remember, I started without Erling Haaland. It was pretty rough. I was probably about where I am right now. And I finished top 50k once again, 4 years in a row. And in fact, 3 of the last 4 years, I've had pretty rough starts. So I know I can absolutely claw it back. I could still get top 10k. I could still get top 50k. But I would just like to have some fun with FPL again. And maybe that is what I need to do. But I then look at it and people say, yeah, just pick fun players, like get aggressive with your moves. The only fun that I've had in FPL recently was when I made the double move to bring in Pope and Saka for Raya and Bruno. And you might say they were bad moves, but for me it was fun. I wanted to bring in Bukayo Saka. It meant I double Arsenal attack, which was slightly different. That's the only fun that I've had. And that has backfired massively. I think I'm like 10 or 11 points down on that. So yeah, it's been pretty rough. I don't have much else to say. I don't want this to come across too much like, woe is me, I'm so unlucky. I've picked some bad players in there, and we're going to discuss some of them. I don't really need to say how bad Reinders and Stack have been, for example. We'll discuss that throughout the video when we look at my Game Week 10 team and transfer plans as well. But yeah, if you had a bad game week with me, if you've had a bad start to the season as well, know that you are not alone in that. I am there with you, and I absolutely think we can turn it around, but it does need to start soon. So as cliche as it is, we cannot change the past. What has happened. We now need to look forward, and all we can do is try to improve from here on in and make good changes to the team. And of course, I am sat here with 3 free transfers, unfortunately 0 in the bank. And I'm going to have to make some tough decisions this week, because as soon as you have 0 in the bank and as soon as your underperforming assets are those such as Stack and Reinders, you know that you're going to have to also sell some expensive players, which isn't always the thing that you want to do, but also maybe take a hit too. So I have to be, I think, confident with my decision making this week, a bit more ruthless, and sell players that maybe I would normally be a bit more patient with. So I'll read out the team, and then I'll go through what the weak spots are in the team and where I might potentially change it. And then what we're going to do after we've looked at my watch list is I'm just going to have a very long, rambly section probably, where I just go through some possible options at this early stage in terms of transfer combinations that I could make, because that's what it is this week. It's combinations. I'd be very surprised if I don't use at least 2, if not all 3 of my transfers, and at least 50 to 60% of the moves I've looked at involve taking a hit, because at this stage, what have I got to lose? And there's no point just bleeding points every week if I think there's a set of 4 or 5 moves which could massively upgrade my team. I also, though, am very aware that I'm sat here on a Sunday night after scoring 35 points, and I don't want to think too emotionally about it. Maybe the team isn't that bad. Maybe it is a bit of bad luck. Maybe a combination of only 1 or 2 transfers could also sort out the team. In terms of chips, I am probably 1 chip ahead or behind of most people. I've only used the wild card. Most people have probably used a triple captain or bench boost. So I also need to have a bit of a think about when I play those chips. So the team as of right now in the starting 11 is Pope against West Ham, Tarkowski against Sunderland, Gabriel against Burnley, and at the moment I've got Anderson against Wolves at home. Of course, if he's not available, then I'd have to play Rodon against Brighton away, which is absolutely fine. So defence looks good. I've also got Senesi on the bench against Man City. The midfield 4, Njai against Sunderland, Reinders against Bournemouth, Saka at the moment with the armband, as I'll discuss, against Burnley, and then Semenyo against Manchester City. And on the bench, I've got Stack against Brighton away, tucked very neatly as my 3rd sub. And then my front 3, all blank last week, of course, João Pedro against Spurs, Haaland against Bournemouth, and Gyökeres against Burnley. So, where should we start? Let's start with, so the defence-wise, I'm pretty happy with the defence. Tarkowski, Gabriel, Anderson, Senesi, and Rodon, I think, is a good back 5. Tarkowski is definitely the weak spot, just in terms of how much he costs. If Tarkowski was 4.5 or 5, I'd have no issues, I'd keep him. I think Everton haven't been great defensively. Tarkowski usually is pretty good for DEFCON, although he didn't hit it last week. But it's just the fact that he's 5.5 million. For a very similar price, you can get Munoz. I would much, much rather have Munoz. And then for $1 million cheaper, you can get Keane, who gets very similar DEFCON to Tarkowski and has shown more attacking threat this season. For 4.1 million, you can get the likes of Rodon, Alderete, Mukiele, who are keeping more clean sheets and also getting DEFCON 2. So it's nothing to do with me thinking Tarkowski's a bad asset. He's just too expensive, and he is one way for me to free up money. So he is a potential replacement, and I wouldn't be surprised if I sell him this week, because it's just a nice 1 million at least that you can free up by downgrading him. Or if I do free up the funds, like I say, moving to a Munoz or a Timber looks really nice. In terms of the midfield, I like Saka. And in fact, I am very tempted to captain Saka, not just because I've had a bad start to the season, but I just think that Burnley are terrible. They conceded over 2.5 XG to Wolves in this game. And I know there was a penalty. Take that away. It's still almost 2 XG they've conceded to a very blunt Wolves team. I know they won the game, but Burnley just feel that like they're there for the taking every single week. And Bournemouth, I don't think, have been as good as some people are suggesting. They're about mid-table for defensive data, and Haaland has been monstrous this season. I don't want to let one blank put me off captaining him, but this doesn't feel like a bad opportunity to back again. So I'm going to think about it throughout the week, and Saka captain is definitely a possibility. But anyway, I'm happy to have Saka in the team. Semenyo will be staying because after City and Villa, the fixtures are really good for Bournemouth. And I still really like Iliman Ndiaye. So I think the 3 of them, I just don't really want to sell them unless I really need to. But Reinders and Stack, I'm desperate to find a way to sell both of them this week. I need to sell at least one of them, because I could technically, like, if I sold Stack, I could bench Reinders or vice versa. So I need to, at the very least, if there's one thing I do with this team, I need to sell at least one of Reinders and Stack. Because on Reinders, his minutes are dropping. He played CDM today. He's useless at CDM from an FPL perspective. Doesn't get forward. Reinders just refuses to do anything defensive. And maybe that was why they struggled in this game. I think he got like 2 or 3 DEFCON in this game. So it's not even like, oh yeah, he's playing deep a bit, will get DEFCON, and then he gets hooked early, gets a yellow card. Like, Reinders is genuinely a rubbish FPL asset. When he's playing further forward, he's not doing enough. When he's playing further back, no attacking threat, no DEFCON. His minutes have dropped off a cliff. So I would say Reinders is arguably an even bigger issue than Stack because he's more expensive. And on Stack, apparently he had a small issue, which is why he played obviously 0 minutes. But with Tanaka back, And with his overall performances, I'm not sure his minutes will be great. He's not on set pieces, doesn't get DEFCON, no attacking threat really. Like, the pair of them absolutely stink. They need to be gone from my FPL team. So that's the situation with the midfield. With the forward line, again, I've said this before, I am patient to my own detriment. I am far too patient with FPL assets, but that's my style of play, and I think there are multiple ways to play FPL. I would normally give João Pedro and Gyökeres the next 3 games. Like, I'd be happy to. Gyökeres has Burnley, Sunderland, Spurs. João Pedro has Spurs, Wolves, Burnley. Like, really nice set of 3 fixtures. They've both got Burnley in there, and they're both playing for 2 teams that create chances. So I would feel perfectly okay keeping them. The issue with keeping them right now is, firstly, there are loads of forwards that are providing better value, like Welbeck, Mateta, Walter Marder, Krupi Jr., for goodness sake. So that was green. Fleming scored a brace in Game Week 9. So there are other forwards that are providing lots of value for cheaper, and I don't have another way to free up the money to upgrade Reinders and stack other than selling at least one of João Pedro and Gyökeres. The concern I have here, or not the concern, but the thing I need to think about, I would rather sell João Pedro than Gyökeres. If you were to say right now you can keep one of them, at least Gyökeres is taking shots, and I think Arsenal look better than Chelsea at the moment, and fixtures-wise over the next 3, they're actually very comparable. But I fancy Gyökeres to score more goals than João Pedro across the next 3, if I had to predict. And it probably won't go that way. But of course, João Pedro is a lot cheaper. Like, João Pedro to Mateta is actually an upgrade in price now. Gyökeres to Mateta frees up the money to go and do stack or Reinders up. So I'm in this position now where, in all fairness, I should be happy selling both of them. And maybe that's the more cutthroat sort of approach I should be having. But I'd rather sell João Pedro. And if I sell João Pedro to Mateta, well, then that doesn't help me get Reinders or stack up. So I probably am in a position where I need to sell Gyökeres this week. But selling a number 9, playing for a team like Arsenal, and in a fixture where I see this being 3-4-5-0 before Burnley, it just feels terrible. And again, if you watch Gyökeres, he doesn't look like he's going to do much, but this is the sort of game where I expect him to. As we saw against Leeds earlier this season, I think Arsenal scored like 4 or 5 goals. Gyökeres gets a brace. That's the kind of game that I expect this being. So, yeah, that's the awkward position that I'm currently in. So to recap that before we look at my watch list and then have a bit of a live tinker together and look at possible transfer combinations, I need to check Anderson's fitness. That would kind of help me decide this week. But of course, I've got Rodon and Senesi on the bench. So even if Anderson is out for Game Week 10, unless he's out long term, I'll keep him. Tarkowski could be a way to free up money. And then one of Gyökeres or João Pedro, or potentially both, a way to free up money. And then I need to upgrade Reinders and stack. So there's basically 2 players I really want to sell in the midfield, and then 2 possible routes to free up money in the defence and the forward line. So you can see probably a maximum of 4 transfers, a minimum of 2, but probably 3. So there's going to be a lot of movement happening in my team this week. Let's take a look at the players that I'm looking to bring in, and then look at how I'm going to do that towards the end as well. So guys, very briefly, because we're going to take a look at this in a second anyway, but the players that I'm currently looking to bring in that are on my watch list for Game Week 10 and beyond, and as a recap, 3 free transfers and no money in the bank. I'll be brief because this is basically the same watch list as last week with a couple of players that have been added. So defense-wise, if I sell Gyökeres, then absolutely Yuri and Timber if I can get there, and I freed up enough money to do like Tarkowski to Timber, that would be fantastic because I want to have 3 Arsenal for the next few games, and even moving forward beyond that as well. It's not just about the immediate fixtures. And so if I sell Gyökeres, I really want to probably go back to double Arsenal defence. Like, that probably was a mistake. I still don't think Rye's a great asset. He doesn't make saves, but Timber and Calafiori really look like they are. The issue is, like, Burnley is the type of fixture where they could play a Ben White if they wanted to, or a Lewis Skelly. So that would be the only concern this week, but definitely Arsenal defence are the best defence in the league. If not Arsenal, I'm looking at options like maybe like a Reece James or a Chempong at a cheap price. There are players that I could consider, but it's basically Crystal Palace outside of that. And I think if I'm going to go premium, I'll go Munoz. And if I'm going to go cheap, as much as Gay was the one that got DEFCON this week and he's got more attacking returns, I still really rate Richards at 4.5. So yeah, Timber, Munoz, Richards, the most likely defenders for me. I could, as I'll show you in a second, go really cheap. Like maybe Tarkowski down to Alderete or Mukiele could be the play. Yes, that would give me Rodon and a Sunderland defender, but they've both been really good defensively and they're getting DEFCON. Maybe we have to change our perceptions. And if I had to play one of them in a given week, I don't mind, even if they've got a tough fixture, like Sunderland against Chelsea, starting someone like Mukiele would have been absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm looking at possibly making a massive downgrade too. In the midfield, again, it depends how much money I free up and who I sell. At the cheaper price, Xhaka for me is the standout. I do still really like Longstaff. If you gave me all of the money, I would lean Xhaka, but that 0.1, as you'll see in a second, actually goes a long way sometimes, especially if there are price changes that price me out. So Xhaka and Longstaff, for me, are still the two best cheap midfielders. At that sort of 6 million price, I had Paquetá in last week, but West Ham just really aren't it. So for me, Yankuba Minte keeps getting good minutes, passes the eye test, decent fixtures coming up for Brighton. He's not actually awful for DEFCON either. Taking a few set pieces, I think Yankuba Minte stands out if I need someone around that price. Then between sort of 6.5 and 7, I think it's Ismail Assar, Enzo Fernandez. I've spoken about these two a lot recently. Dominic Szoboszlai. He's averaging like 11 DEFCON per 90. He's had a couple of returns already, especially when he plays in the midfield, especially in the number 10 if Wirtz doesn't start, which I don't think will happen that often. I really like him. But if I bought Szoboszlai for 6.5 instead of someone like Ismail Assar and he lines up at right back, it just doesn't feel great. And I know he obviously plays quite advanced. He's still good for DEFCON, but I would certainly say that Ismail Assar and Enzo Fernandez stand out for me. In terms of who I prefer to bring in, I think it's quite close. Enzo Fernandez probably does just about win out still for his possible penalties. Some set pieces, although it doesn't take that much with Reece James in the team. And I just think generally, I can see him having a slightly higher ceiling. We also know that Ismail Assar will go off to AFCON as well. So as much as both of these could be short-term, because once Palmer's back, maybe Enzo obviously no longer on pens, not taking too many set pieces, a little bit deeper. But Sar, you know you will have to transfer out when AFCON comes around. So I think that's very, very close in all fairness. And maybe I'll lean towards Ismail Assar because his overall ownership is a bit lower. And then, yeah, Bryan Mbeumo, the man on the thumbnail. This will seem like a knee-jerk if you've just started watching my channel or you've not watched many of my videos this season. Firstly, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. But if you've watched all of my videos this season, you will know I've spoken about Bryan Mbeumo every week as a player that I think has been unlucky not to get more and as being Manchester United's probably best attacker. And I think that's continued. And if Manchester United can continue the way that they're playing right now, and that's a big if because we've not seen that now for 10 plus years, but if they can get a nice run of form together, and they've been playing quite a lot better as well, I think they're third for non-penalty expected goals this season, Bryan Mbeumo is the best asset to bring in from Manchester United. So it's difficult to justify spending 1.6 million more on him than Ismail Assar, but if I can find a way to free up the money, I'd love to get him in the midfield. And then with the forwards, Krupi Jr. at the cheap price, but I'll only do that if I desperately need to free up some funds because he only got 69 minutes in Game Week 9. Evan Nilsson will be back soon as well. And so I just don't think he's an asset that I'd want to rely on a consistent basis. Thiago is the one that really interests me at 6.1 million. He's got 45 points this season, the second top scoring forward. His underlying data is strong. He's on penalties. Fixtures aren't bad. Minutes are good. Thiago passes the eye test as well whenever I watch him. He's basically got everything you'd want from a cheap forward. So Thiago is number one for me if we go sort of below that 7 million. I still really like Welbeck though. That free kick against Manchester United was fantastic. He's started 3 90 minutes in a row. He's got 3 goals in the last 3 games as well. 3 returns, I should say. He's just looking really, really solid. Walter Marder up to 7.5 million. Now, missed a big chance in Game Week 9. I really like him, but now that he's almost the same price as Mateta does look like he could go up in price tonight or tomorrow. I just think if I'm paying all that money, I would rather go for Mateta. Like Mateta for me is the slightly better asset, but I don't think there's maybe as much in it as some people are suggesting. But for me, if I have the choice, it's Mateta. So there we go. Basically, as you can see, Crystal Palace are the number one target for me as someone that owns none at the moment. But I do also think there's some good value elsewhere. So in the final section, I'm just going to go over to the FPL site, live in front of you, as almost like it's a live stream, just show you some possible transfer combinations, certain players that could be downgraded, what that'll allow me to get to. And I'd love your opinion this week because I've got so many different routes I can take and we need to bounce back with a green arrow. So guys, I can't promise that this section will be perfect, but I think this is the easiest way for me to do it rather than try and create a fancy graphic just because there are so many moving parts. I just wanted to live with you, just talk through my thought process at the moment. So let's go through it. Players that I want to sell then, Reinders and Stacks. So let me click an X on the 2 of them and just say that those are the 2. Because as much as João Pedro and Gyökeres are big issues at their price, like I say, normally I would give them a little bit longer. So really the only 2 that I'm desperate to replace are those 2. Now I don't have to replace both this week, but let's go on the basis that I do just want to get rid of the pair of them, prepare myself for an upcoming bench boost at some point, and just be done with 2 assets that aren't performing. If I were to put in the assets that I really want in those positions, it's Ismail Assar and Enzo Fernandez. Now that does give me a bit of a benching headache a lot of weeks, but those would be the 2 that I feel like I'm missing out on potentially. Now, if I wanted to do that in 3 moves, it would be Gyökeres down to someone 6.4. So immediately, one possibility that I can go for, that's on midfielders for some reason, is Thiago in for Gyökeres, Sarr in for Reinders, and Enzo in for Stack. I'm going to click make transfers. Hopefully I don't accidentally make any transfers in this video. So yeah, Reinders to Sarr, Stack to Enzo, Gyökeres to Thiago. Now, why do I not love that? I, again, would rather sell João Pedro than Gyökeres. This gives me 2 Arsenal rather than 3, and it doesn't give me the money in the bank to do Tarkowski to Timber for a hit or anything like that. I don't get Mateta, and again, that does give me a bit of a benching headache in a lot of weeks. Not the biggest issue in the world, but maybe unnecessary to spread the funds that much. So, let's put Gyökeres back in. So that's one possible option. Let's say that I only go for one of Sarr or Enzo, and let's actually go for Ismail Sarr. So, Reinders to Sarr. Instead of doing Stack to a really good midfield, like a quite expensive one, let's say we do something like, I'll even go all the way down. So just Stack to Longstaff. Feels a bit sideways, but Longstaff is better for DEFCON, taking set pieces, and has better minutes right now. So I would need to free up 0.8 to make that work. So again, I've got 2 options here. 3 options. One is João Pedro down to someone 6.7 or below, so Welbeck or Thiago. The next is just Gyökeres to Mateta. So again, that would be Reinders to Sarr, Gyökeres to Mateta, Stack to Longstaff. That's probably the most straightforward transfer, I'd say, out of all the ones I'll mention today. And then the other one is just actually leaving João Pedro and Gyökeres. Maybe I do just let my patience win out, and I actually just replace Tarkowski, and I can even go for a straight replacement with Keane, but I would probably go Richards, because I do want another Palace. I want a Palace defender if possible. So this doesn't solve the João Pedro and Gyökeres issues. It doesn't allow me to go and get Mateta or Walter-Mada, but it does replace my 2 biggest issues in Reinders and Stack and allow me to get a Palace defender as well. And I don't think Tarkowski is necessarily perfect value at the moment either. That's option 1. And by the way, I could even bench boost this week after I make my transfers. It's really just if I'm happy bench boosting with Dubravka and Senesi with difficult fixtures and if Anderson's fit. But I'll probably lean towards saving the bench boost. So yeah, that's an option. Let me go back then. Sorry, there are just so many options. I'm just going to refresh all together. Right. Next option. I think I want to do Reinders to Sarr or Enzo, so I'm going to make that move once again. Now let's say that I wanted to get Brian Mbeumo in, because he's the man on the thumb now. As a Manchester United fan, I've been incredibly impressed, and I could see him continuing to do really well. And he's actually had the best non-penalty expected goal involvement total of any midfielder in the Premier League this season. I'd need to free up 4 million to do that. So I could then just go and replace Gyökeres with Krupi Jr. So to read that out, if you're listening or just not following at this stage, it's Reinders to Sarr, Stack to Mbeumo, and Gyökeres down to Krupi. I encounter the same issue with the first combination, I suppose, that I now only have 2 Arsenal. I don't really have the money to go and get a Timber who I'd want to. I then have a dead spot as my third forward, which maybe isn't the biggest issue, but when it comes to the bench boost, if I have to play it a bit later, do I know that Krupi's still getting minutes at that stage? But then I do get Sarr and Mbeumo, which I really like. Let me put Stack back in. So the option where I want to go and get Mateta for João Pedro, let's go through that one. And again, I didn't promise that this section would be perfect. And also, apparently, I've lost the ability to speak. João Pedro to Mateta. That's how I want to try and keep Gyökeres. So this is the ideal world. I do João Pedro to Mateta. That's a move I want to make. I need to free up 0.1 to do that. But remember that by the time I make these moves, because I won't be moving early, I might have lost 0.2 on these players. Stack might go down. Reinders might go down. Mateta might go up. So maybe Stack down to Longstaff gives me a little bit of money that I need. And let's then say I do Tarkowski down as well to Richards. That gives me 1 million in the bank to then possibly go and upgrade Reinders to Sarr. So I've been looking at this set. This is the -4 that I'm really, really tempted by. So let me click make transfers. If I accidentally do make these, it'd be pretty funny that you saw it live. So Tarkowski to Richards, Reinders to Sarr, Stack to Longstaff, João Pedro to Mateta. That is almost so good that I kind of want to do it now, tonight, on Sunday evening, for a -4 hit. I'm removing Tarkowski, who's not great value, Reinders and Stack, who absolutely stink, and João Pedro, who's rubbish. I'm getting triple Palace in Richards, Sarr, and Mateta, and I'm getting a better cheap mid in Longstaff. But I'm not going to be able to afford this in a few days. But it's so risky, making 4 transfers, taking a big -4 hit this early on. Like, it's just, for me, that screams like emotional response to the game week. Now, let's say that I want to go down this same path of taking this hit. I guess all I would have to do then is, if I do get priced out of this, which I almost definitely will, is rather than Longstaff, go for someone like Lewis Miley, who minutes won't be great, King, who got dropped at the weekend, or what I think is more sensible is I just go and get Alderete or Mukiele, because Sunderland have been defending well, In the week that I'd want a bench boost, though, is Arsenal. So I either have to accept that my bench boost is a lot weaker or delay the bench boost, by the way, until, let me Alderete, full profile, until game 17 when they've got Brighton away, which isn't as bad of a fixture. And then each week, yeah, most weeks I'd have to play Gabriel, Senesi, Anderson, but Alderete and Rodon when they need to fill in is fine. And this gives me plenty of wiggle room. It would even maybe allow me to go and get Granit Xhaka. Now, do I want to bring in double Sunderland? Maybe not, but they are up to, I think, 4th in the Prem after the results tonight. So I'm so scared when I click make transfers. So the moves there would be Tarkowski to Alderete, free up some funds, Reinders to Sarr, Stack to Xhaka, and João Pedro to Mateta. I'm getting double Palace attack there, which I really like. I'm improving Stack to Xhaka, and all I have to do to afford that is go and get Tarkowski to Alderete. I think most people will be watching this saying, Rosh, your life would be easy if you just sell Gyökeres instead. And in all fairness, I could just sell both of them, right? Let's look at that option as the final one that we go through here, because this section's been far too long already. Gyökeres to Mateta, João Pedro to Walter, and that would allow me to go and comfortably do Reinders to Sarr. Maybe that's it. Maybe I just do a triple move to replace Reinders, João Pedro, and Gyökeres with Sarr, Walter, and Mateta. But I look at the -4 that I took instead, and I feel like that's better because I get to replace Stack if I want to. I free up the money by downgrading Tarkowski, who's not great value, and it allows me to keep Saka and Gyökeres for Burnley. And again, they are the worst defence in the Premier League this season. Maybe I'm just being too patient with Gyökeres and João Pedro. But anyway, most of the moves involve removing one of them this week. If I go back then to this team with nothing in the bank and 3 free transfers after watching that awfully rambly section, what would you do with my team? I don't mind taking a hit. I don't mind being a little bit knee-jerky. I don't mind restructuring. I also don't mind being a bit more patient as well. There might be a set of moves that I've just not considered here, which you think are better overall. I also don't think the team's like that bad. There is certainly players that need to be gone, but considering a few of them can be benched every week and I can make the moves slowly, I don't think we're too far away from having a decent enough team for the next few weeks. So yeah, let me know what you would do, and let me know what your plans are for Game Week 10 as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 10 early thoughts and transfer plans, and a bit of therapy for myself in relation to FPL. So if you did enjoy that, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. I really appreciate the support. Tomorrow there'll be the FPL roundup, which will be posted around midday. So keep an eye out for that content. But until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.